dog and ring me at the hull if he finds anything in the next couple of hours. Very well, sir. Thank you.
Really, Inspector, it is getting rather late. Don't you think it would be wiser for you to go home and have the doctor bring you there?
I'm sorry, Lady Florence, but a man has been murdered in, among, and quite possibly by your Delphiniums. It's a very serious matter, and I shan't be leaving till I've spoken to each and every one of you.
Spoken to us? What in heaven's name for? I'm surely you can't think that one of us has anything to do with this dreadful matter. You are, however, welcome to speak of things as much as you need to.
Inspector, you mentioned by the Delphiniums. What on earth did you mean by that?
They are a highly toxic plant, Mum, and the deceased that have a rather large quantity of them shoved into his mouth.
So you think he may have been poisoned, then?
There is no other obvious indication of how he might have died.
Inspector, I must object to this sort of talk around my daughter. Can't you see how deeply upset by all of this she has been? And the vagrants go around poisoning themselves in my garden. I really don't see why I should have to eat a cold supper.
I am sorry to distress your daughter, Lady Florence, truly. But as I said before, a man has been murdered in your garden.
Florence, we must let them do their job. You wouldn't want a murderer running about, would you?
Oh, no?
Oh, Edith,
Take apart as it is.
I'm so sorry. Detective Inspector Vulgar looks like a very thorough sort of chap. And I'm sure he'll have this all sorted out by bedtime.
I wouldn't make such a rash promise, Mum. I still haven't identified the body. I am sorry, but I do need to speak to everybody. I have a constable speaking to Mabel and Mrs. Garfield, the cook house in the hall. Is there a room that we can use for interviews?
This one here, I suspect. Well, which one of us would you like to see first?
I'd like to speak to Mr. Fitzgerald first, as he's the one who discovered the body.
Oh, well then we'll leave you to it, shall we? Dreiser, shall we go up to our room until it's our turn?
Would that suit you, Inspector?
That'd suit me just fine, sir. Mr. Fitzgerald, would you like to take a seat, please?
No, I'm fine here, sir.
Tell me, Mr. Fitzgerald, how did you find the body?
Well, I was sent out to cut some delphiniums.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you speak up, please?
As I said, I was sent out to cut some delphiniums for the dinery. And I told Lady Florence they was all shredded. But she said, sure ain't there enough good ones. So I was searching through the patch when my foot hit something. And if it weren't that dead bloke, so I came up to the house and rang for you, sir.
You didn't notice him until your foot hit him?
No, sir, he was all covered up with flowers and ground cover like.
Surely the area looked different, though. They're stabbed in some way.
Oh, yes, sir, but I thought it were an animal or a Miss Enid. I never thought it were a dead body.
An animal or Miss Enid?
Oh, yeah. Miss Enid fancies herself a bit of an horticulturalist, sir. But she massacres everything she touches. And I can't say anything to her with being who she is, sir.
Massacres everything she touches.
She decimated my sweet peas and wreaked absolute havoc with my azaleas. I've been cleaning up those for months now. I don't know if they'll make it through to the spring, sir.
So, you'd assume she'd been at the Delphiniums?
Yes, sir.
Tell me, Mr. Fitzgerald, did you recognize the deceased?
Who's that, then, sir?
The dead body. Do you know who he is?
No, sir. But I keep to myself.
He's not the local, then?
No, but I do keep to myself, sir.
How long have you lived at 5 Magna?
All my life, sir. And my father, and his before. All of us gardeners at the hall, sir. But nothing like this has ever happened before, sir.
A murdered body in the Delphiniums. No, I can't imagine that's a common occurrence.
Yeah, that too, sir.
That too.
Oh, I was talking about how Andrew and Fife that massacres the shrubbery and flowers like Miss Enid does. But now that you mention it, we've never had a dead body in the Delphiniums before either.
I can't suppose you have. Have you noticed any suspicious behavior around the grounds recently?
Oh, there was cook was in the potting shed with young Albert from the grocers, but I don't think that was all that suspicious. It was a bit, you know what I mean.
Unless she was mad at him too, I don't think it was suspicious. Is there anything else you can tell me, Mr. Fitzgerald?
No, not that I can remember, sir.
All right, well, thank you for your time. Could you please send in Lady Florence next?
I'll have Mabel fetch her, sir.
Thank you. be as quick as possible.
Cook tells me supper will be ready in 45 minutes, and as you can see, I still have to dress.
So, just a couple of questions. Florence?
Why, no one in this household could possibly have anything to do with this dreadful matter.
I certainly hope not, Lady Florence. For your sake. Tell me, Lady Florence, have you noticed anything suspicious around your property lately?
Well, I have my suspicions about Cook and that grocer's boy, but well, she's a terribly good cook, and so long as she doesn't do anything publicly embarrassing, I'm willing to overlook it.
I meant something to do with the murder, Lady Florence. Has there been any sign of intruders, any altercations among your staff?
My dear Inspector, I would not stand for that sort of a thing.
Of course not, Lady Florence. You did not see the body, correct?
I am not so morbidly disposed.
Of course not, Lady Florence. Well, if you'd be so kind as to send in one of the Millsbys next.
The Millsbys?
Aye.
Well, the Millsbys just only arrived. Surely they couldn't have anything to tell you.
But my interview with them shall be brief. I do like to be meticulous with my investigation, Lady Florence.
Yes, well, if you must, you must.
I would be most obliged, Lady Florence.
Detective Inspector Volker?
Miss Enid?
May I come in, Inspector?
Absolutely, miss. Please, have a seat.
You'll find who did this, won't you?
I shall certainly do my best, miss. You saw the body, didn't you?
Yes.
And, did you recognize the deceased, miss?
He was mine. I loved him, Inspector.
So you were close to him?
We were to be married. No one knew. We were going to tell my mother at the village fete, but she was in a more charitable mood.
And what was this lad's name?
Reginald Pratt. He came down to the village from time to time doing odd jobs, but he was from Grimsley.
And how did you meet this Reginald Pratt?
At the train station in Grimsley. We'd been up to London, and Mother stayed on with friends, so I came down on my own. Some boys at the station were teasing me. And he stepped forward and told them not to be ashamed of themselves. And then he waited with me until Fitz came for me in the car.
It sounds like he was a fine young man.
He was. He was so kind, and so gentle, and so clever.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Florence said you wanted to see me. I didn't
It's my
realise.
fault, Aunt Gilda. I'm afraid I jumped your queue. But please come in. I don't mind you knowing.
Do what, dear?
Miss Enid was just telling me about an acquaintance of the deceased Mrs. Millsby.
Enid, darling, you knew him?
I loved him, Aunt Gilda. And he loved me. I don't know why anyone would want to hurt him.
Miss Enid, did he ever mention being scared of anybody?
Scared? Why, Reg, no, Inspector. He served his country. It is as brave as any man in England, and then some.
What I meant was, had anyone ever threatened him? Did he have any enemies?
Everyone liked Reg. You ask anyone, they liked him.
Yes, but my dear, how well did you know him?
I knew him better than anyone. We were soulmates.
Yes, but my dear, would you have known if he had any old enemies? Any problems? Money problems, perhaps?
Whoever did this didn't do it because of anything that Reg was or did. It could only have been the work of a madman.
Right.
Blinded by love.
Mm-hmm.
Silly girl.
Well, at least it makes my investigation that much easier now that I know who the victim is. And your expert questioning helped as well, Mrs. Millsby.
Oh, I'm very sorry. I have a very inquisitive nature, I'm afraid.
I have a few questions for you, however. You are Miss Enid's aunt, correct?
No, regretfully no. My husband, Drysdale, was Harold's best friend. They went to school together and they served together. I was in school with Florence. We're Enid's godparents.
And you arrived shortly before the body was found, is that right?
Yes, just moments before. We hadn't even had a chance to finish our drinks.
And you went and saw the body, didn't you, Mrs. Millsby?
Yes, it was most curious. It was lying there amongst the Delphiniums, all distorted, flowers jammed in his mouth. It's quite grotesque, really. Yes. I believe the body, he'd been dead for some time. The body was cold and blood had pooled under his skin where he'd been lying on it.
You seem to know a great deal about the deceased, Mrs. Millsby.
Well, I was an ambulance driver during the war, and I'm afraid I developed rather a thick skin.
Drove an ambulance, did you?
Yes.
Wasn't that usually a job for younger women?
Unusual, yes, but, I have no children, and I'm not the sort of type to sit at home twiddling my thumbs while my husband's over in North Africa having a rip-roaring time.
I see.
Who are you, Inspector?
Well, tell me, Mrs. Millsby, do you come often to Fife Magna? Are you familiar with the village and its people?
Familiar enough, I suppose. I can find myself embroiled in a half a dozen conversations if I stroll down the high street.
And this, Reginald Pratt, had you ever seen him before?
No. I thought I recognized him, but not from the village.
Well, Miss Enid said that he was from Grimsley and that he came to town from time to time to do odd jobs. Perhaps you saw him at the train station in Grimsley.
Oh, no. We come in from the opposite direction. We live in Clegton Wood, and we take the train from there to Thrushton, and we hire a car to bring us here.
So where might you have recognized him from?
I don't know. It is possible that I didn't really recognize him. He could have just reminded me of someone I knew or met once.
Yes, well, thank you, Mrs. Millsby.
You're disappointed, Inspector?
No, not at all. I do have one more question for you, however.
Fire away.
How conservative is Lady Florence? If she found out that her daughter was in love and planning to marry an odd-job man from Grimsley,
Would she have murdered him with her own Delphiniums? No, Inspector. I mean, she would be horrified, of course. And of course, no. I mean, she rather despairs if needed, Inspector. But I mean, given time, I'm sure she would have come around. She wants Enid happy, Inspector. She wants her married. I mean, if she really objected, she would have paid him to go away. No, murdering him? I can't see Florence doing something so vulgar.
I would have the same impression of it myself. Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Millsby. Could you please send in the kennel next?
Yes, of